Have you ever found yourself lingering in a relationship far longer than you knew you should have, clinging to the hope that love, somehow, could conquer everything? Even the sting of humiliation and the nagging voice of self-doubt? This story isn't just about a man and a woman. It's about the profound struggle for dignity, the journey to self-love, and the liberating realization that our true worth doesn't hinge on the approval of others. As we navigate the seasons of our lives, especially as we age, we often face the temptation to prove ourselves, sometimes at the steep cost of our own happiness. But what if I were to tell you that genuine love should never, ever cost you your self-respect? This video will guide you through the deeply emotional journey of an elderly woman, Eleanor, who, despite her very best efforts and intentions, found herself ensnared in a relationship that systematically stripped her of her dignity. Eventually, she summoned the incredible courage to walk away, to reclaim her true identity, and to rediscover the values that had always defined her. Why should you keep watching? Because the lessons Eleanor learned are incredibly powerful and truly essential for anyone, especially those who have felt the particular pangs and vulnerabilities that can come with growing older. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of the paramount importance of self-love, how to recognize when a relationship is insidiously draining your worth, and why, sometimes, accepting solitude may be the healthiest and most empowering choice you can make. Don't miss out on this. This isn't just a story. It's a potentially life-changing message for anyone looking to reclaim their confidence and embrace their true value at any age. Watch until the very end and discover the profound wisdom that comes with aging and the incredible power of loving yourself first. If you are not yet subscribed, I truly recommend subscribing and activating that notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Your support means a tremendous amount to me, and if you enjoy this video, you can help me continue spreading these valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you connect with the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and create even better videos for you. Now let's begin. In the beginning, everything felt like a dream unfolding, as if she had miraculously stumbled into a second chance at a life she genuinely believed had long since passed her by. He showered her with compliments that felt like warm, penetrating sunlight, piercing through years of accumulated cold self-doubt. His words were tender, precise, almost as if he intuitively knew exactly what she needed to hear to rekindle the dormant fire within her. He called her vibrant, wise, and insisted that her age brought a certain gravitas and charm that no younger woman could ever hope to emulate. His affection felt so utterly genuine, so all-consuming, that she began to believe in a version of herself she had long forgotten, a woman who was attractive, desirable, and undeniably worthy of love. Every look he gave her seemed charged with an infectious energy that made her heart race with a youthful flutter. His smiles held a playful, almost seductive quality, and his gestures exuded a deliberate, captivating grace. He had mastered the art of making her feel as though she was the only woman in the entire world who truly mattered. And she, eager to keep his adoring gaze fixed upon her, bent over backward to please him. She went out of her way, often to extraordinary lengths, to ensure his happiness, treating him like a king who had magnanimously bestowed upon her the rare and precious privilege of his attention. Nothing seemed too extravagant, too troublesome, or too much of an effort for her. He wasn't just a man. He was a beacon of youthful energy and vitality, a force that made her feel alive in ways she hadn't experienced in decades. But as the days melted into weeks, tiny, almost imperceptible cracks began to form in the seemingly perfect foundation of their shared world. At first, they were incredibly subtle, the kind of things you could easily dismiss as mere quirks, odd habits, or simple misunderstandings. He began to make suggestions, always carefully framed as well-meaning advice. "You really should try to keep up your appearance a bit more," he said one day, his tone light, yet with an unmistakable undercurrent of condescension. "A woman your age shouldn't really let herself go like this." She laughed it off at first, brushing it aside as a playful, perhaps slightly clumsy, comment. But the remarks didn't stop there. They came more often, always disguised as concern, but landing like tiny, sharp darts aimed directly at her carefully guarded self-esteem. What began as small, Almost insignificant suggestions slowly grew into persistent, grating criticisms. His voice started to carry an edge of superiority, a subtle yet constant reminder that he was younger, fitter, and somehow more vibrant than she was. She started to feel the undeniable weight of his words, the way they lingered unpleasantly long after the conversations had ended. He began to remind her, casually at first, but with increasing and pointed frequency, that she was getting on in years for him. Each time he uttered those words, it felt like an unexpected slap, a sting she didn't see coming. She started to notice a distinct shift in his tone when he spoke to her. Less adoration, more judgment. Yet, she desperately convinced herself it was temporary, just a rough patch that would eventually smooth out with time and patience. The real tipping point, the moment the foundation truly began to crumble, came in the most intimate part of their relationship. He began to criticize her performance in bed, using words that pierced through her carefully maintained confidence like shards of glass. For a woman who had always prided herself on her ability to connect deeply and provide emotional, as well as physical, satisfaction, his comments were absolutely devastating. "You're a bit predictable," he said one night, his words as sharp and cold as knives. "I need more fire, more excitement." He started comparing her to younger women, an unwinnable contest, a standard she could never meet, no matter how hard she tried. It wasn't just her body he criticized, it was her very essence as a woman, her being. And yet, almost in the same breath, he would occasionally angle out crumbs of approval, just enough to keep her hooked, to keep her hoping. He would tell her that no one else could love him with the same dedication and unwavering care that she gave. He'd assure her that her tenderness and attentiveness were rare and precious gifts that younger women often lacked. These fleeting reassurances, however, were almost always laced with a subtle mockery. He'd laugh at her earnest, sometimes desperate, attempts to please him, calling them a bit much or over the top. She couldn't see the manipulation for what it truly was. All she saw was a chance, however slim, to prove herself, to win him over completely, to recapture that initial dream. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment one below to let me know that you are still here with me. Eleanor tried to endure, truly believing that love required boundless patience and significant sacrifice. She told herself repeatedly that if she could just weather this storm, he would finally, truly see her worth. But the storm only grew fiercer, more relentless. His words became weapons, systematically cutting away at her confidence until she barely recognized the woman staring back at her in the mirror. She started to see herself through his critical eyes, an aging woman, struggling desperately to stay relevant, desperately clinging to the fading illusion of youthfulness. She no longer felt like a woman of experience and wisdom. She felt like a relic, an antique, pitted at best, openly mocked at worst. For anyone watching from the outside, her choice to stay in such a situation might seem baffling, perhaps even pathetic. But love, especially when it turns toxic and manipulative, has an insidious way of binding its victims with invisible, yet incredibly strong, chains. It wasn't just his youth or his physical attractiveness that kept her tethered to him. It was the hope he intermittently offered, those tantalizing glimpses of warmth and affection that made her believe, against all evidence, that things could somehow get better, that the dream could be salvaged. She was a prisoner, not just of his clever manipulation, but of her own profound and aching need to prove her worth to someone who steadfastly refused to see it. The true tragedy of her story lies in its unfortunate familiarity. How many of us have stayed in situations that systematically drained us, simply because we believed, or desperately wanted to believe, that our love could somehow fix what was broken? How often do we allow ourselves to be diminished, hoping against hope that our sacrifice, our endurance, will finally be enough to make someone see our inherent value? Her story is a painful, poignant reminder of the dark, shadowy side of love, how it can lift us to the highest, most exhilarating heights, and then, just as swiftly, drag us down to the lowest, most desolate depths. She wasn't just trying to win his approval. She was fighting a desperate battle to reclaim a piece of herself she had lost along the way, a piece she deeply feared might be gone forever. And that fight, more than anything else, was what ultimately broke her. One night, After yet another exhausting argument that left her heart heavy and her spirit profoundly bruised, Eleanor found herself retreating to the quiet, solitary sanctuary of her room. She sat there in the heavy silence, the oppressive weight of the evening pressing down on her chest like a physical burden. Every word that had been exchanged replayed relentlessly in her mind, each one cutting deeper and more painfully than the last. The sharp, lingering sting of being made to feel small, insignificant, and fundamentally unworthy had become a recurring, unwelcome ache in her life. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, something pivotal shifted deep within her. She could no longer ignore the dull, persistent throb of unhappiness that had subtly settled into the very corners of her existence. She realized, with a startling and undeniable clarity, that she had finally reached her breaking point. Standing before the mirror, she took a long, hard, unflinching look at the woman staring back at her. A 70-year-old woman gazed into her own tired, weary eyes, tracing the lines etched on her face not with her fingers, but with her thoughts. Those wrinkles, she now understood, weren't signs of failure or decay. They were markers of a life fully lived, of battles fought and often won, of love generously given and sometimes, painfully, lost. Her graying hair and weathered features told the rich, complex story of decades spent growing, learning, and, above all, surviving. Yet, at this precise moment, she couldn't help but feel that somewhere along the winding path of her life, she had been unfairly reduced to something less than she truly was. Somewhere, somehow, she had allowed someone else's damaging opinion to overshadow her own innate sense of worth. It was in that quiet, deeply reflective moment that she came to an incredibly important, life-altering realization. Self-love had to rise above all else. It wasn't about arrogance or selfishness. It was, quite simply, about survival. She couldn't continue living as though her value, her very essence, depended on the fickle approval of someone who steadfastly refused to see her for the remarkable woman she truly was. She couldn't keep shrinking herself, contorting her spirit, to fit into a world, a relationship, that didn't make adequate space for her experiences, her hard-earned wisdom, or her generous heart. And so, for the very first time in many, many years, she made a decision purely, unequivocally, for herself. It was terrifying, yes, but it was also profoundly and undeniably necessary. The next evening, with a palpable mixture of trepidation and newfound resolve, she sat down to talk to him. She approached the conversation with a calm, steady demeanor she didn't even know she possessed. Looking him directly in the eye, she explained, with quiet dignity, how she felt, how their relationship had slowly but surely eroded her confidence, how she could no longer endure being treated as if she were invisible, inadequate, or somehow less than. She told him, in no uncertain terms, that love, true love, shouldn't ever come at the expense of her self-respect. No matter how much she cared for him, no matter how deeply she had once hoped things would change for the better, she couldn't continue down this painful, diminishing path. If staying meant sacrificing her dignity, her very sense of self, she was prepared to walk away. The conversation was as excruciatingly painful as it was profoundly liberating. He dismissed her words, brushing them off as mere overreactions, as unnecessary dramatics. But this time, she didn't waver. For the very first time, she stood firm, grounded not in anger or resentment, but in the quiet, unshakable strength of knowing her own worth. It was a bittersweet moment, a poignant turning point. A part of her mourned the inevitable end of what they once had, or what she thought they had, while another, stronger part celebrated the nascent beginning of something she had almost forgotten entirely: self-respect. When she walked out of the house that evening, she felt a strange, complex mix of emotions. There was sorrow, of course. Letting go of someone she had loved, or believed she loved, wasn't easy. But intertwined with that sorrow was an overwhelming sense of relief. A heavy, oppressive weight that had been pressing down on her for years seemed to miraculously lift. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she could breathe freely. The air itself felt lighter, her steps less burdened. She realized, with a profound sense of clarity, that she hadn't just walked away from him. She had walked decisively toward herself. The days that followed were a significant test of her newfound resolve. Loneliness, that old, unwelcome visitor, crept in, wrapping itself around her like a clinging, unwelcome shroud. The nights were especially hard. She missed the simple presence of someone else in the house, the comforting sound of another voice, even the shared, often unspoken, comfort of a companionable silence. But as the days slowly turned into weeks, she began to notice something remarkable, something transformative. This loneliness, while undoubtedly difficult, was different. It wasn't the hollow, aching emptiness of being unappreciated, unloved, or unseen. It was a quiet, dignified solitude, a space that allowed her, finally, to rediscover herself. She started to reflect on her life, not with regret or bitterness, but with a deep sense of gratitude for all she had endured, all she had learned. She remembered the younger version of herself, so full of hope and boundless dreams, and she realized, with a surge of quiet joy, that that woman was still there, buried beneath years of trying to please others, of seeking external validation. Slowly, painstakingly, she began to reconnect with parts of herself she had long forgotten, parts she had suppressed. She reached out to old friends, people who had known her before she had started losing precious pieces of herself in this all-consuming, diminishing relationship. She dusted off hobbies she hadn't touched in years, finding a simple, profound joy in the act of creating, of exploring, of simply being, once again. One day, she stood in front of the mirror again, but this time, she saw someone entirely different. The woman staring back at her was not defined by her age, by her wrinkles, or by any external measure. She was defined by her resilience, her strength, her spirit. Every line on her face told a story of triumph, of survival, of love that had been given freely, generously, and without regret. Every gray hair was a testament to the wisdom she had earned, the lessons she had learned. She no longer saw herself through the critical, diminishing eyes of others. She saw herself as she truly was, a woman of immense value, of quiet strength, of infinite, untapped potential. As the months passed, her world began to bloom in ways she hadn't expected, in ways she hadn't dared to hope for. She traveled to places she had only dreamed of visiting, immersing herself in the breathtaking beauty of new experiences, new cultures. She found joy in the smallest, simplest things, a glorious sunrise, a captivating book, the easy, comfortable laughter of an old, dear friend. She realized, with absolute certainty, that her worth had never, ever depended on the approval of anyone else. It had always been there, within her, patiently waiting for her to claim it. She learned that true love, the kind that accepts, respects, and truly values, starts from within. It's the love we give ourselves that sets the standard, the benchmark, for how others should treat us. And as she moved forward, she carried this precious lesson with her, a guiding light. Life is far too short, too precious, to spend it constantly trying to prove your worth to someone who steadfastly refuses to see it. Aging, she discovered, isn't about loss. It's about uncovering, with clarity and conviction, what truly matters. And what mattered most was that she had finally found peace, not in someone else's arms, but in the quiet, steady sanctuary of her own heart. This moving anecdote serves as a profound and deeply emotional reminder for older individuals who may be facing doubts about love, companionship, and, most importantly, their own self-worth. The yearning for love is one of the most natural and deeply ingrained desires we experience as human beings. It transcends age and remains an intrinsic part of us, no matter how many years have passed. Yet, as we grow older, it becomes absolutely crucial to remember that the pursuit of love should never, ever come at the expense of our inner serenity, our hard-won self-respect, or the deeply held values we've spent an entire lifetime cultivating. For many, the later stages of life bring with them a poignant longing to reconnect with the perceived vitality and passion of youth. But this understandable desire often carries inherent risks, particularly when it leads us to compromise our dignity or invest our precious time and energy in relationships that diminish rather than uplift us. This story is a poignant, powerful example of such a journey, where one woman's experience in love became a potent lesson not only for her, but for anyone who has ever felt torn between the powerful pull of their emotions and their fundamental sense of self-worth. Reflecting on her experience, Eleanor came to realize that the relationship she had entered, despite its initial, intoxicating allure, was not a true partnership, but a fundamentally one-sided dynamic that relentlessly tested her self-esteem. The younger partner, while undoubtedly charming and full of life, could not, or perhaps would not, appreciate or fully understand the profound depth of her experiences, the wisdom she carried within her, or the unique vulnerabilities that often accompany the process of aging. Instead, she found herself constantly trying to prove her worth in ways that felt alien to her, ways that required her to step further and further away from her authentic self. At first, the sheer excitement of this new connection blinded her to the subtle, insidious cracks that were forming in its foundation. Like many older individuals, she was drawn to the enticing idea of recapturing the boundless energy and thrilling excitement of her youth. She wanted to feel needed, admired, and alive in a way that only new love, or the illusion of it, can sometimes inspire. But over time, she began to see the true cost of this relationship, not just in terms of the immense energy she poured into it, but in the quiet, almost imperceptible, erosion of her sense of self. Each compromise she made, each time she consciously ignored her inner voice, her intuition, was another step further away from the strong, resilient person she had spent decades becoming. Ending the relationship was not an easy decision. It required immense courage, introspection, and self-reflection. Yet, it was precisely in this act of walking away that she triumphantly reclaimed her identity. She realized that love, in its truest and most nurturing form, cannot possibly thrive in an environment where one feels the constant, exhausting need to prove their worth. True love, she now understood, is deeply rooted in mutual respect, where both partners genuinely see and honor each other for who they are, not for who they wish the other person to be. By stepping away, she demonstrated, both to herself and to others, the profound power of self-love and the paramount importance of prioritizing one's dignity above all else. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. This realization was a pivotal turning point for Eleanor. She began to see the relationship not as a personal failure, but as a profound and invaluable learning experience. It taught her to value herself more deeply, more completely, and to establish and maintain firm boundaries that protect her peace and her overall well-being. She came to understand, with crystal clarity, that her worth as a woman, as a human being, was not tied to her ability to meet someone else's often unreasonable expectations or to somehow relive the fleeting glory of her youth. Instead, her true worth lay in her integrity, her resilience, and her unwavering commitment to living authentically, even in the face of criticism, societal pressures, or the fear of being alone. For those in their later years, this story holds a particularly powerful and resonant lesson. Every wrinkle on our face, every gray hair that appears, is a symbol of the life we have lived, the challenges we have overcome, and the wisdom we have painstakingly gained. To sacrifice that hard-won wisdom, to deny the inherent dignity that comes with age, merely for the fleeting approval of another, is to lose sight of the incredible richness and depth of our own unique journey. Older people, perhaps more than anyone else, understand the profound and irreplaceable value of self-respect and the critical importance of living in alignment with one's most cherished principles. From this heartfelt story, I want to share 5 key lessons specifically for older individuals navigating the often complex challenges of relationships. 1. The illusion of youth. No matter how tempting or alluring it may seem to try and relive the vitality and energy of youth through a relationship with someone significantly younger, it's absolutely essential to stay grounded in reality. Youthful energy and charm can be captivating, but they are not, and can never be, substitutes for genuine connection, mutual understanding, and deep respect. Many people, like Eleanor in the story, find themselves investing their precious time, emotions, and energy into someone who cannot truly appreciate the profound depth of who they are. This often leads to feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and a constant, draining need to prove oneself, which ultimately becomes a trap. 2. The danger of compromise. Love, in its healthiest form, should never require us to sacrifice our core values, our fundamental beliefs, or to accept treatment that diminishes us or makes us feel less than. Yet, the fear of loneliness, a fear that can be particularly acute in later life, often drives people to tolerate situations and behaviors they would never have accepted in earlier stages of their lives. It's crucial to remember that love is not meant to be a battlefield or a relentless test of endurance. It should be a sanctuary, a safe haven of mutual respect, understanding, and unwavering support. 3. The importance of self-love. To be loved fully, authentically, and respectfully by another, we must first learn to love ourselves. This means embracing not just our strengths and positive attributes, but also our vulnerabilities, our flaws, and the scars that life has inevitably left behind. Self-love is the absolute foundation of every healthy, thriving relationship, and without it, we risk losing ourselves completely in the often fruitless pursuit of another's approval or validation. 4. The power of integrity. A person's true worth is not defined by their age, their physical appearance, or their ability to conform to societal expectations or trends. It is defined by their integrity, their character, and their resilience in the face of adversity. This integrity, this commitment to one's authentic self, is what transforms the challenges we face into powerful symbols of strength, wisdom, and enduring grace. 5. The gift of reflection. Every relationship, no matter how difficult or painful it may be, presents an opportunity to learn and grow. By honestly and courageously reflecting on our experiences, both good and bad, we can gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of ourselves, our needs, and what we truly require to thrive. For Eleanor, the relationship, though ultimately damaging, became a mirror that revealed both her vulnerabilities and her incredible, often underestimated, strength. This story is a testament to the immense courage it takes to prioritize oneself, even when it means walking away from something familiar, something that once held promise. It reminds us, powerfully, that true happiness is not found in the validation or approval of others, but in the quiet, steady confidence that comes from living in alignment with our deepest values and principles. For anyone in their later years struggling with relationship challenges, let this be a beacon of hope, a gentle reminder that it's never too late to choose dignity, self-respect, and authenticity over fleeting, often deceptive, illusions. Eleanor once believed that enduring harsh criticisms and unfair judgments in the name of love was an act of noble sacrifice, a testament to her unwavering commitment and inner strength. However, as time passed, she began to realize, with painful clarity, that what she had mistaken for selflessness was, in reality, the gradual, insidious erosion of her dignity. Every dismissive remark she absorbed, every unfair judgment she silently endured, chipped away at her self-respect, piece by piece. Love, she came to understand, should never demand that we abandon ourselves, our core being, for the sake of someone else's perceived happiness or comfort. Instead, it should inspire mutual growth, understanding, and profound respect. Loving yourself, she discovered, is not just an act of self-care. It is a fundamental moral obligation. Without that solid foundation of self-worth, you risk allowing others to define your value, to dictate your happiness. And when you forget your own inherent worth, you inadvertently open the door to being mistreated, taken for granted, and ultimately, deeply disrespected. She came to understand that self-love isn't selfish. It's absolutely necessary. It's the bedrock upon which all healthy, fulfilling relationships are built. Recognizing that you deserve kindness, respect, and genuine affection isn't a luxury. It's a fundamental human right. And without this core understanding, love can easily become a cage rather than a sanctuary. This revelation, though painful, was the crucial first step toward reclaiming her life and her authentic identity. The most difficult, yet ultimately transformative, lesson came when she finally found the courage to say, "Enough." To walk away wasn't merely an act of defiance. It was a moment of profound, soul-affirming liberation. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a pivotal turning point, a clear declaration that she would no longer allow herself to be diminished, to be made small. She realized that choosing to walk away from a toxic, draining relationship was not a failure on her part, but an extraordinary act of strength and self-preservation. Solitude, which she had once feared, now became her unexpected refuge. It wasn't a punishment or a state to be avoided at all costs, but rather a sacred, healing space where she could begin to mend, to rebuild, to rediscover. In the quiet, contemplative stillness of being alone, she discovered a profound truth. The deep, abiding peace that comes from self-respect is worth far more than the fleeting, often illusory, comfort of a dysfunctional relationship. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. For the first time in many, many years, Eleanor experienced what it truly felt like to simply be enough, entirely for herself. Solitude offered her the precious, unhurried chance to rebuild her self-esteem, brick by painstaking brick. It became a time of profound reflection and much-needed renewal, a period where she could freely explore her own desires, her core values, and her long-dormant dreams without the crushing weight of someone else's judgments or expectations. She learned, deeply, that being alone isn't something to be feared or avoided. It's a remarkable opportunity to rediscover the parts of yourself that were lost, overshadowed, or suppressed in the shadows of someone else's often unrealistic expectations. As she embraced this new journey of self-discovery, she began to see aging not as a loss, not as a decline, but as a precious, multifaceted gift. Society often glorifies youth, placing it on an impossibly high pedestal as the absolute peak of beauty, vitality, and desirability. But Eleanor came to understand, with a newfound wisdom, that the marks of time, the wrinkles, the gray hair, and even the slower, more deliberate pace of life, are not signs of decline but are, in fact, badges of honor, symbols of a life richly lived. Each line on her face told a story of perseverance, of resilience, of battles fought and lessons learned. Every gray strand was a symbol of wisdom earned through lived experience. Aging, she realized with a surge of quiet pride, is not something to be ashamed of, but something to be celebrated, to be embraced. She understood that those who chase the superficial, who value fleeting appearance over enduring character, will never truly appreciate the profound depth of a person's soul, the richness of their inner landscape. Trying to mold herself, to contort her being to fit someone else's shallow, often impossible, standards would have been a profound betrayal of the rich, complex, and fascinating person she had become over decades of living. She learned to take genuine pride in her experiences, in her journey, and to embrace her unique story with all its perceived flaws and undeniable triumphs. And in doing so, she found a new, exhilarating sense of freedom, a freedom that came from no longer seeking validation from those who were simply incapable of seeing her true, intrinsic worth. One of the most profound lessons Eleanor learned on this journey was about the delicate, crucial balance of giving and receiving in relationships. Physical closeness, she realized, is more than just a simple gesture of affection. It's a powerful, nuanced language of love that goes far beyond mere words. While she no longer possessed the unbridled physical vigor of her youth, her touch, her attentiveness, and her genuine willingness to prioritize her partner's needs spoke volumes about her devotion and her capacity for deep connection. However, she also learned, sometimes painfully, that love must be mutual, a two-way street. Acts of love and gestures of closeness should never feel like obligations, nor should they be met with indifference or dismissal. True intimacy, she discovered, thrives on a foundation of mutual respect, genuine understanding, and the consistent acknowledgement of each other's efforts and contributions to the relationship. She also realized that no matter how deeply she cared for someone, love couldn't truly flourish without reciprocity. Her gestures of affection, no matter how genuine or heartfelt, needed to be valued, to be met with appreciation, for the connection to thrive and deepen. This understanding brought her a profound sense of clarity. True love isn't about giving endlessly, without receiving anything in return. It's about creating a shared, sacred space where both people feel seen, heard, valued, and cherished. Without that essential mutuality, even the most heartfelt gestures gradually lose their meaning, their power, and their ability to nurture the bond. In the end, Eleanor came to see that walking away wasn't the end of her story. It was, in fact, the inspiring beginning of a brand new chapter. A chapter where she no longer felt the need to prove her worth to anyone, because she had finally, wholly, and unreservedly recognized it within herself. Through the undeniable pain of letting go, she found a strength she didn't even know she possessed. She found peace, not in someone else's fleeting approval, but in the quiet, unshakable certainty of her own intrinsic value. Life, she realized with profound conviction, is simply too short, too precious, to spend it constantly trying to please those who can't, or won't, appreciate the incredible depth of who you are. The greatest love story she discovered, the one that truly mattered, was the one she was now writing with herself, for herself. As she looked back on her arduous yet illuminating journey, she felt not regret, but a deep and abiding gratitude for the lessons learned, for the pain endured, and most importantly, for the precious chance to rebuild her life on a solid, unwavering foundation of self-respect and unwavering authenticity. Life is a continuous journey of lessons, growth, and rediscovery, and what we've shared today is just a glimpse of the profound truths that shape us. Now it's your turn. What resonated with you the most from Eleanor's story? What lesson will you take into your own life? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share one thing you've learned and plan to practice in the comments below. Your insights could inspire and uplift others on their own unique journeys. If you found value in this video, please let us know by leaving a comment, liking this video, and sharing it with those who might need to hear this empowering message. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content like this. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll see you in the next video.